And we have a quorum? Okay, great for this, okay. Hi, we are at the June Community Board 1 Landmarks meeting, and we have one presenter, right? You guys? Big fans, so we'll let you guys start. People will come in, maybe, hopefully, but whatever. Okay, go in.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Good evening, I'm Fran from Tolbert. I'm the Executive Director of Historic Districts Council. We'll try and keep this somewhat informal. And Diego, I don't know if you introduce yourself.
Diego Pelagia, I'm the Political Relations Specialist at the Historic Districts Council.
And we've been doing presentations for community board, landmarks, land use planning, zoning, building committees across the city, introducing them to, or reintroducing them to, doing a landmarks 101 of what are landmarks, what is preservation in New York. I think, as you all know, there's a wide disparity between community boards in terms of their knowledge and understanding of landmarks. And I think some of the stuff tonight for CB1 is probably going to feel pretty basic. And I'm happy to just speed through really quickly. And if you all have questions, and at the end of the presentation, we have kind of our initial thoughts on City of Yes for housing opportunity and how that impacts historic districts and historic neighborhoods. But, when we're presenting, let's say, to Brooklyn Community Board 11, which has, just a small handful of individual landmarks and no historic districts,
Yes.
they may see a certificate of appropriateness application once every 2 years. And so
Yeah,
the board
we're
is-
so robust here. We
is
have it all.
Yeah, so a lot of this is probably going to feel like.
Okay, and hopefully other people come in while this is happening, whether online or. Thank you.
Should I try this? Yeah. All right. So that's who we are. We are the citywide advocate for New York's historic neighborhoods. We focus on advocating for historically, architecturally, and culturally significant buildings and neighborhoods, and work with more than 500 neighborhood partner organizations. And we have testified in front of Community Board 1 many times and worked with you all on certain initiatives like most recently our work to try and designate the interior of the 60 Wall Street lobby. But I've talked about many other things here at the board. So, we have been involved in the creation of almost all 156 historic districts in the city. And as you all know, the LPC has granted landmark status for about 156 historic districts, 1,460 individual landmarks, 121 interior landmarks, of which I think on Tuesday that will go up with the designation of the One Wall Street Red Room lobby. And I believe they just confirmed the designation of the hotel lobby. So
Lovely.
and as well as 12 scenic landmarks, of which there are none in Community District 1. So, what is preservation? I think you all know this, but this is what people ask us all the time when we go out to neighborhoods. Why is it important? We're working to preserve our history, and what parts of our past can we preserve?
Maybe we'll turn off the air conditioning. I'm not particularly cold,
Okay.
warm, and it's probably for anybody who's listening in the cyberspace, it's not working.
Can you ladies hear us clearly?
No, I wish it was clearer and louder. So I think that we should move the owl closer to the speaker.
Okay,
Yeah, that would be better because I'm having a hard time hearing.
it's the air conditioning. We're gonna work on it.
It's because of me.
I want you guys.
I will lean in towards it.
Yeah.
Okay, is
Okay.
that better?
I don't know, start.
So these are some of the ways that we can help community organizations. We offer support for a landmarks designation process, the National Register process, cultural resource surveys, street co-namings, walking tours, etc. We have 2 of our walking tour guidebooks here with groups we work with in Community District 1 and the Seaport and Lower West Side, Friends of the Lower West Side, who we are giving a Grassroots Preservation Award to next Tuesday. I'm going to go through this really quickly because I think you all know this process. What is a New York City landmark? It has to be at least 30 years old and deemed an important part of New York City's heritage. It can be an individual building, a district, an interior, or a scenic landmark. And when a site is landmarked, the Landmark Preservation Commission must approve and advance any alteration, reconstruction, demolition, or new construction affecting the historic site. What it does not do, it does not control use. Landmarks does not control what happens inside the building if the use changes, prevents new construction. As you all know, we see a lot of changes to landmark buildings and applications all the time. It does not, impact property taxes, rent. It does not discourage affordable housing. Again, it doesn't impact the use there, and I think this community board has approved affordable housing as part of landmark sites. It does not require restoration. You only go to landmarks when you need to do work on your building, and it does not maintain specific businesses. If you want to get something landmarked, you submit a request for evaluation to the Landmarks Commission, which is a form on their website. And if they deem that is something that they want to move forward with, they calendar for a public hearing. At the public hearing, any and all members of the public can testify at the public hearing. And then step 4, the commissioners vote on designation. There's no specific timeline for this. You can submit a request for evaluation. They can respond, they'll respond to you that they're considering it. After that, there is no timeline. They can get back to you in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, to move forward on a site. And within the landmarks law, there is no designated timeline on how they have to move forward on designating something. So they just, this week had a public hearing for a historic district in Brooklyn that they first were considering in the 1990s. City Planning Commission has 60 days to prepare an advisory report. The City Council has on 20 days from the time of the LPC filing to modify or disapprove, and the mayor can veto within 5 days. We rarely ever see this. Landmarks generally does not move forward with designations that do not have council member support. The regulation process, what you all see here at Community Board 1 a lot of times, that everyone has to get a permit for work on their landmark building, any kind of exterior work, or interior work that impacts the exterior of the building. These are the things that you do not need permits for, very minor things like replacing broken window glass, repainting your building, minor maintenance. When you do get a permit, most permits are issued within 20 to 90 business days. The LPC has gotten very responsive to accepting applications online and walking property owners through the process very quickly. And most of their permits are the very minor permits, like permit for minor work or certificate of no effect on the building. But if that doesn't happen, then it goes to the commission for a full hearing. And these are the projects that this committee sees on a regular basis. The Landmarks Commission will generally not put anything on their calendar for a public hearing that the community board has not weighed in on. And we review all these applications as well, and comment, I would say, on about a third of them. But as I said here, the community board's involvement, and as you know, anyone can submit comments on these applications, not just community organizations. It can be neighbors, stakeholders, other people there. The National Register, of which there are also many sites on the National Register in Community District 1. Sites on the National Register have to be at least 50 years old, possessing integrity of location, design, setting, material, workmanship, feeling, association. There's a whole set of criteria for the National Register of Historic Places, but the main thing is that the National Register, which is a state and national process, does not protect buildings. It's largely an honorific designation, and buildings can still be demolished if they're on the National Register of Historic Places. The times that it does help protect buildings, if there's public money being spent on doing work on those buildings, or there's a plan to demolish them using public money, they will go through a much more rigorous national process, and tax credits are available to commercial and income limited property owners if you're on the National Register. And we know that some of the commercial to residential conversions in Community District 1 have used historic tax credits.
What is that in New York?
The type,
Yeah, the
Maximum
5,
of
40%.
Maximum of $50,000 for like your
for
own
property.
home. Yeah.
Yeah, for,
There's various ones, and frankly, in our district, our median income level is above what is,
so you can't use
yeah,
the homeowner
yeah,
tax credit.
that's not available.
But you
Yeah,
got
commercial, if you put it into, you have to put it into service though, as a rental property, otherwise.
And it does, oh, thank you.
25%?
It's 20.
Yeah.
It's good. And it does, and a lot of times people will bund it with other types of income because it will not do a whole project on its own. So, we've heard it's pretty difficult to do for condos and co-ops. It's primarily used for rental properties, is the easiest way to use it. We have heard a few condos and co-ops using it, but it takes a whole different process of syndicating those credits and how they end up getting used. I'm just gonna kind of skip over this. Is how we get things on the National Register. You fill out a whole form on the state's short preservation website, and but I'm gonna kind of skip through that part. These are some of the financial incentives, as we mentioned, the income producing properties here, 20% income tax credit for substantial rehabilitation. The final dollar amount is based on the cost of the rehabilitation. And you can also claim the state credit with the federal credit for the income producing properties. And then owners can apply for a additional credit from the state if they're in a qualified census tract, which is here, which, as we're saying.
Yeah, it's not, here it doesn't work, so.
Yes, yes.
yeah.
There are electeds at the state level who are trying to get this expanded and get the income cap lifted. It kind of goes every year within the budget and then just never kind of moves forward, but it's something the Preservation League of New York State has really been pushing to get that cap lifted. These are some of the other financial incentive programs. The Sacred Sites program, you all may know, which is matching grants and loans for religious properties throughout New York State for, both work and for studies to do work. I know a lot of religious properties and community district want to take advantage of this. They also have emergency loan program and other types of funding available. And so we refer people to the Landmarks Conservancy, which is one of our sister nonprofits all the time. So this is City of Yes. I know you all have already commented on the first two pieces, which are now law, but I thought I would just briefly say what HDC thought of these first two.
Has anyone else joined us? No. How was your meetings attended at the other community boards?
How many people did we have at CB11 last night?
I mean, CB2, they don't come out anymore and say.
CB11, we maybe had like 10 people? 10 people? 11, yeah. They had other things on their agenda.
Sure.
Yes,
Just wanted to get you guys heard, that's all. Okay.
So I'm just gonna go through these because they're already law, so I don't know if we need.
No.
But as for the carbon neutrality, we were really supportive of this and actually thought that it, that historic buildings and, environmental justice, climate change, they really can go hand in hand in having historic buildings be upgraded for the future. So we really support the use of solar panels in historic districts. We didn't have any issues with that. Even visible solar panels is something that we generally do not oppose. I know some groups do and some community boards do, but we felt like, especially the removable, this is not really a problem. We supported more street trees and environmental interventions in historic districts. Part of this, and I'll talk about this in a second, the LPC have their own rules that they passed around environmental interventions, and they said no street trees in formerly industrial areas like Soho because it's not compatible with the district, and we were strongly in opposition to that, saying Soho is no longer an industrial area and we can put trees everywhere. So they ended up stripping that out of the rule change. Let's see. The only thing I would say we really were worried about is within carbon neutrality. I'm interested to see if it goes forward. There is a real push for exterior insulation, doing cladding on building exteriors to add the insulation on the exterior, not the interior, so that you can get more space on the interior. And we thought that was going to probably severely limit buildings for future landmarks consideration, if you're just cladding them in, large panels of insulation, especially if they have any architectural merit whatsoever. So we oppose that. It did go through, so we'll be interested to see how it gets implemented if at all. I think it was up to 7 inches of insulation on the exterior. And as I said, the OPC in 2023, they passed their own rules on solar panels and rooftop mechanicals. We didn't really have problems with this, with the solar panels or the rooftop mechanicals.
Jason,
Yes?
it's Vera. Yeah, I just wanted to say that, remember on the City Hall, I think we approved, right, of the solar panels that they want to put on City Hall?
Hold that. I can't imagine us approving City Hall putting solar panels on top of it, but that sounds.
Remember their building, yeah, or not the, yeah, I remember seeing that presentation.
Well, you know what? We must check the files, because actually I got an email saying if there's ever a point where we need to check the files, let's check the files. So we want to check for solar panels on City Hall. That sounds like you guys remember that one?
Vicky smiling.
Wait, what?
I'm laughing. Send that email to whom?
Yes, you know where I'll send it.
Into our big office there.
Go on.
Sure. City of Jasper Economic Opportunity, which just got passed by City Council. Again, largely supportive, and actually we took some of our cues from Councilmember Marte and some of his concerns around commercial rent stabilization. That we thought that a lot of what was proposed in there was not necessarily going to be realistic without commercial rent stabilization, and there's no plan to do that. So we're not sure that some of these vacant storefronts, which is what this zoning text amendment is supposed to address, will happen because of that. I would say our main concern was special districts, and I know there are special districts in Community Board 1, the idea that both in economic opportunity and housing opportunity, that city planning is rewriting the rules to streamline them for special districts and make them, I would say, less special, which we don't think is a good idea. But I think you all know this passed council about 2 weeks ago. So I'm going to move on to housing opportunity. Let's see. There we go. So have you all already had your hearing on housing opportunity?
We've had several public meetings.
Okay.
And several full board public meetings, and I think we have not made a final, but Gerald would know. So we are still mulling it over, as they say.
Well, I'll just tell you what we think. We support historic housing typologies like the proposal, and some of these obviously are impact the lower density districts outside of Manhattan more than here, but something like town center zoning, which is residential above commercial, in the low density areas, that's something we support. We support some of the things like shared housing, like the Barbizon Hotel, some of these typologies that might exist in Community Board 1 because they already were historic. These are housing types that have been in existence for quite a long time. So this is something that we support the increased use of. We don't see it impacting historic buildings significantly. Let's see here. Non-residential buildings to housing. Obviously, I think a big thing in this area. As far as I know, all of the preservation organizations are fully in support of this without any kind of, we don't see anything in the details that would cause us not to be fully supportive of this. The only thing is we're looking at places like the Garment District where we think that this might allow, under future rezonings, industrial uses to get removed. This itself, the zoning text will not remove those uses, but once this passes, and then if a rezoning happens, like they're planning for Midtown South, then they can remove all of the garment district uses, and we've been pretty supportive in working with groups in the garment district this year. I don't know if there's any industrial or any other type of use down here that would be a worry for residential conversions. I'm assuming not.
No, I don't think so. I mean, there are sites that have development rights that have also historic buildings that may or may not be part of the district, and I know if Alice Blank were here, she would mention some sites like, for example, the post office building on Canal Street. There's some others, but that's a good one, because that's probably got, you know, a boost in FAR if you do some stuff here, and there will be a lot of tears shed when they tear that one down finally. So, you know.
And going back to my earlier presentation, I think obviously with this commercial to residential, there's a real opportunity here to combine tax credit, a variety of tax credits, including using the historic tax credits to do this work. And they're already doing that in other places, as well as in NYCHA campuses is another place that we've started seeing more use of tax credits for rehabilitation.
So NYCHA is a city agency. How are they using the tax credit?
Through the RAD PAC.
We can't hear you. You guys are mumbling on.
Oh, sorry, the question was how, NYCHA is a city agency, how are they using the tax credits?
So RAD PAC, which is the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program, which is essentially, my understanding is that NYCHA maintains ownership of the property, but it is leased and managed by a private developer and a private company. And that is something that the city is increasingly turning these campuses over to private developers. So they are both putting up the money for the renovations as well as getting the tax benefits of doing those renovations. I don't know if there are any in this area. The one of the ones we've been focusing on, because it is also a landmark, is Harlem River Houses, which has been getting, which has a very large combination of historic tax credits and low income tax credits. We'll talk about that in a second, because I'd like to hear what you all think. ADUs, I'm not gonna talk about, because I don't know if there's gonna be any ADUs in this area. It's something that we're definitely talking with our groups in Queens and Brooklyn about. Special purpose districts, as I mentioned, you know, we just have some real concern about the language being stripped out of the special purpose districts overall in certain places like Hudson Square, Parkchester, where there's housing, and we think this will lead to infill housing in some of the larger campuses like NYCHA campuses and the special districts like Parkchester. We have concerns there, and even some of the districts where affordable housing is encouraged. By streamlining the zoning, there may be a lot more FAR available, and it may actually remove some of the existing affordable housing for a higher market rate housing. So that's something we're concerned about, even though it's not purely a historic district issue, even though there are places like Tribeca that are both a historic district and a special purpose district. I'm assuming you all have talked about TD transfer development rights.
We did, and it's, I explained in the planning meeting that they're very rare to begin with. And therefore, there's very little opportunity in our district, but, you know, I have my ideas of where they are. But just give a brief, you know.
Yeah, so this would be expanding quite hopefully quite dramatically, which would allow a much larger area for individual landmarks to transfer their rights to. I think when we got the presentation from city planning, we disagree with how far they can go. We think it's even further through zoning lot mergers. So they had it it can go across the street, it can go a block away, but it can't take up that full block. But we're like, if you combine those two lots, you could absolutely take up that full block. So that's something, I'm not sure city planning is explaining it the best. We're not opposed to it going, 2 blocks away or, that sort of thing, but we want them to be more, to explain that better. I think our main concern with TDRs is the streamlining of the process to remove public input. And I know, and the city planning came and spoke with you, they said one of the reasons it's only happened a dozen times since it started is because it's cost prohibitive, it takes a long time, it goes through a full ULURP.
But
I
don't
mean,
we want that?
If there are other ways, but I do think for something like the fact that if there's not a bulk modification, then the community board will not even have a chance to weigh in anymore. The community board will only weigh in if there is a change in bulk. We don't think that's acceptable. I think there has to be some process, whether it's not even if it's not a full ULURP, where the community board at least gets to comment on every TDR. And possibly the city council member, but definitely the community board is something that we would push strongly for, because otherwise you could suddenly see a building next to you go down and they were like, oh, we got all these air rights through a certificate from city planning, but we didn't have to no one had to weigh in on that. We could just ask city planning where they said, of course. So this is really where we have the concern, is the public input and the public process. I think basically it, I mean, our other two concerns, and I'd love to hear what you are thinking, the fact that a lot of the affordable housing, all of the affordable housing is optional. There's nothing in here that requires affordable housing, is a real problem for us. And that DRs, but in several other places in the zoning text, it removes community board input, it removes public hearings, it removes council input, it removes board of standards and appeals, all in a way to get these things done more quickly, and that's not something that we support. So I think that is my presentation.
Okay, thank you so much. So,
Thank you.
so Vicky, would you like to start as co-chair?
With questions, comments?
Want to start with? Let's hear it.
And what are you all thinking? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. Vicky?
Well, I did read both of your documents carefully, and also being an architect, you just confirmed what I knew about the city of Yes. There's something I can't quite point to what it is, but at the moment, intuitively, I am concerned about the long-term repercussions of the decisions that we're making now. I have to say that I started with the question of asking, why is this a city of yes? Does that mean we were a city of no? And if you go back to 1961, we put zoning in place because we had run amok with development and greed and misinterpretation of what is good for the people, and not necessarily always starting with financial gain. I'm also a little concerned about evening the city out in terms of destroying or removing districts that were like the Diamond District. Do you know how busy that place is? Like, I go there a lot, right? And where on earth would you squeeze even a studio in that place? And if you live there, there isn't even a grocery store, a school, a doctor's office, an ambulance station. I'm not sure that equalizing everything and overpopulating it with residential, that in my opinion, with all the changes that we're making, in order to incentivize developers to do housing, we're still getting an enormous amount of market rate and not affordable. And I don't mean affordable as in, 60% of the AMI. I'm just talking affordable, and also, lastly, I mean, this might not be applicable to you, but again, I'm just thinking out loud about the zoning proposals with doing an entire building with studios only. We have permitted developers to eliminate the last chance for a single adult, whether they're professional or not, to live alone by allowing developers to jack up studio costs to 3,500 and up. And we all know how much you need to make in order to be able to afford that, or even qualify, even if you want to spend 80% of your income on your lodgings, you can't, you don't qualify. I'm extremely concerned. I, like I said, not quite sure where to even start, let alone abolishing some of our 60 or 70-year rules on rear yard setbacks that again provide more light, more air. After COVID, we should be doing way more open space as we learn rather than crowding the city. And lastly, I did ask last Monday if any of the architects in the city were asked to review some of these proposals, or was it just lawyers and developers?
Yeah, I mean, I know they just had a hearing at or a meeting at the AIA to, to
Where-
get support there.
Tell me where at AIA? At the Lafayette office or that gargantuan convention that costs like $700 a day or something? Where
This
at
was-
AIA?
This was at the Center for Architecture on Tuesday morning. They had a meeting with Dan Garodnick to present, and try
Oh,
to get
so-
the AIA board.
Oh, so if you're AIA, you can get the recording of that lecture, right? I mean, that's,
Yeah.
okay, great.
Yeah.
They didn't
yeah.
know. They didn't know. They said they were speaking at the AIA. I will now definitely go and look at that. But can I also just point out that I think it's been a year or however long it's been in the works? And you're asking the architects now after this enormous effort, architects should have been asked right away to review some of those design changes. And also, just imagine the entire city is in an upheaval now where all these dimensions that are kind of integral to our soul, definitely this generation, right? It's an enormous learning curve, and I'm not quite sure if it's worthy. So what did they say on Tuesday?
Oh,
excuse me?
I was not invited to that meeting. I just know people who were there.
Oh, okay. Let me take a look. That
I heard
was
there were a lot of good people there.
on the 11th.
Vicky,
Yes.
anybody else out there? Vera, can you get your questions in now? Or concerns? What can Historic Districts Council do for us?
Thank you so much for your presentation and all the great work that you do. I just have a question in terms of what is it like in terms of trying to get individual landmarks right now? What is the success in terms of that and advocating for this? I mean, we have a list, right, Jason and Vicky?
We have a list. For example, did you know that the post office on Church Street is not somehow listed as an individual landmark? This amazing Art Deco or
Oh, that's too bad.
the lobby of this building is unbelievable.
Unbelievable. It is irreplaceable.
I made a list, so what I would say is, if we could pull up that list, Vicky, I'm gonna file that with the same person, and we'll pull up that resolution that Alice kind of shepherded last year or so, where we
Yeah,
put together a list. There's this amazing Beaux Art building on Canal Street, and like.
Yeah.
Blah, that's a little bit tougher, but like a post office, anyway.
I mean,
Go on,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, we even have, for instance, we have one that is on the National Register, but for political reasons, that's the Tombs, which is connected to the criminal court building, and that is now being,
Yeah.
demolished. And I mean,
Fabulous, right?
all
mean,
these things,
Alice?
Yeah, I mean, well, we would love to have that list too and help advocate for that. I mean, one of the things we're trying to do is be less reactive. So, something like with 60 Wall Street or some of the other buildings that have come down, at that point, it's almost too late.
Yeah,
And so we're able to proactively advocate, write request for evaluation, that we can help support CB1 in writing the request for evaluation. So gathering all the information for landmarks.
Yeah, sometimes people have an idea, like, let's make this thing, and then they say, hey, will you write a request for evaluation? And you're like, I don't really have time for that. Who can fill that gap?
We will do that. I mean, we actually wrote a request for evaluation for the Canal Street Post Office.
Awesome.
Okay,
so you're on that.
Because we saw that it was in.
That was one of them
It was-
that came
that
up
was
on
the
our
Borough
thing too.
President's Report.
Yeah,
So that's when we were like, well, let's do that now.
yeah, good,
And
good.
OPC said, maybe.
Well, we
Yeah,
also,
maybe it's strong, maybe.
sorry, I was also gonna say that, on the corner of Ann and Nassau, we lost that McKinney and White building, albeit maybe not the best example of their work until, SL Green came in and built that corner student housing for Pace. You know the one I'm talking
Yes.
about? We made
Yes,
an
it was-
effort. Yeah, we made an effort to stop that, and I was walking by it 2 days ago, and I have to say that the new building is the least street-friendly design that we could have permitted, but nobody asked us. And I wish we had pushed harder, not just not to have the existing torn down, but rather encompassed in the new design, but also the new design to be more street-friendly. I mean, we're eroding our historical context altogether.
But I mean, I would love, I mean, any list you have.
What?
Expansive.
Yes, we're gonna get the list for these guys.
You know,
What-
even we had a meeting this morning with city planning and brought up the demolition of the outside, of 77 Water Street, the plaza,
Yes.
the pops there. And then we thought it was a significant piece of modern architecture that could have been considered. No one ever submitted anything, and city planning said we had no idea, and it was demolished through a DOB, maintenance permit. Because it wasn't on anybody's list, no one thought about it, so
Wow.
even having that on the list, they were like, oh, we didn't know that was significant, and we were like, well, no one ever submitted to LPC to even get it considered.
Yeah, we've had that happen a lot, you know, so we have a list, we're gonna share it.
But, sorry, back to your
Yep.
question, yeah, I think it has been a pretty tough, environment to get individual landmarks. Moving forward, the LPC is doing them very slowly. They say they are trying to match them largely to their equity plan, representing under, you know, to further, to designate in underrepresented neighborhoods that they have not designated in before, but we haven't necessarily seen the correlation between what they're working on and the designations. We heard that they are interested in moving forward now, again, with a possible district on the Lower East Side. But, you know, these are still, again, the more expansive we can be. So any ideas you all have on your list or otherwise, please send them to us so we can make sure we're advocating for them as well.
What
can
is
we-
your, oh, I'm sorry, Jason, just one quick, before he
Yes,
goes
no.
off this topic. What is your thought about rezoning Soho and turning it into Midtown and getting rid of all that historical fabric that not only we as New Yorkers, but like millions of people all over the world flock to see our Soho. And now we're going to get rid of that.
I mean,
Why
that
was
we
I?
went through before I was at HDC. I was not involved in the Soho NoHo fight. I think.
Oh, so
we're-
that's a done deal?
Yes, I mean, the Soho
Oh,
rezone.
that rezone, yes,
Rezone,
there's
yeah.
this something called the SXM.
And we're relying on some of our partners like Village Preservation to keep track of if any affordable housing does come out of that. And one thing I want to go back to in City of Yes, because I would love to think what this board thinks. We noticed under under economic opportunity that the minor changes that were made were largely at the request of council members representing outer Queens and outer Brooklyn, like the removal of corner stores, which we thought was a great idea to reactivate corner stores in residential neighborhoods, but the community out there opposed it very strongly and it ended up being stripped out of the final resolution that you cannot have corner stores in residential neighborhoods. So I'm interested to know what if there's any language that can be put into the resolution for CB1, like, let's say this goes forward and at the end, ADUs get stripped out of the zoning, but everything else is left in, so that, you know, each neighborhood is still not taking its fair share. Is there a way to say, you know, that community board one should not be taking all of these changes if other areas are able to successfully stop pieces of housing opportunity?
Interesting.
Mm.
It's all in the name of affordable, but again, equity, as soon as you say equity, it implies there isn't, and now you're gonna focus on it, and it's almost the kiss of death. I mean, I think this conversation probably goes beyond all of us here, but
I think, yeah, that's true.
I mean, losing, you know, downtown, losing Soho, we lost the, you know, manufacturing district, we lost the flower district, we lost the jewelry district. What are we gonna have? Where is the city going in terms of its future? And by the time we wake up, it'll be too late. 60 years down the road, we will have destroyed our historic fabric.
Well, I would encourage, I mean, the board then to make a pretty strong statement, at least on special districts. I don't know, is the Little Italy,
That's not in our
That's not in
district.
your
Nope,
district.
we're to the south of Canal Street.
Yeah, just,
So
yeah.
there are, I know, Tribeca, Battery City are
Yeah.
special districts, and I would encourage the board to be very.
Yeah, Seaboard has a special purpose
To be
district.
very vigilant in making sure that those rules are not streamlined so that essentially it will say any business can move in here and any design guidelines can exist and any housing can go here, because then it's not gonna feel any different than anywhere else.
Uh-huh. Okay, any other questions? Lucy?
Thank
is
you
not
so
here.
much. This was a fabulous presentation. And thank you for providing your documents in advance. It's great to have it in my folder. Very, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to, you know, stay in touch, and if there's any specific issues, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Okay, awesome. That'll conclude our meeting. And we will give a little report at the full board. And I'll take my full 2 minutes to give this report. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Sorry for the
Yes.
short turnout. I don't know what happened. We have a small committee anyway. And so
Small
we're
brains.
so sorry.
It's okay.
Thank you.
you,
Good
Tara.
night.
Vicky, I think
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
Bye.
bye.
Yes, what's up?